Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
Now, we should all be cautious of caring for our environment and making small, sustainable changes in our day-to-day lives. So why not start by making some delicious changes? Stoneleigh Wines create their premium wine in New Zealand, and it's made from 100% sustainably sourced grapes and is vegan certified. Stoneleigh's Sauvignon Blanc expresses vibrancy and fresh flavours of the Marlborough region and is a minimal intervention wine and collaborates with nature. We have a unique discount for our listeners so you can get 20% off Stoneleigh's Sauvignon Blanc exclusively on Amazon using the code Stoneleigh20.
Hi everyone, it's Ellen Mary here. So in this week's episode, it's just me until later when Michael joins in. I'm chatting with Rowan Cannon, who's the director of Wild Rumpus. If you haven't heard of Wild Rumpus, you're about to learn all about it. They use art and play to help us connect deeper to nature, which is so cool. And we're going to be finding out more about the Timber Festival, which is being held in July 2023 in the National Forest here in the UK. You're going to hear all about it. It's absolutely amazing. So if you want to get stuck in, learn more about nature, have a really great time, this is what it's all about. But Wild Rumpus is more than just a festival. There's so much more. So stay tuned and hear me chatting with Rowan. And after that, we have a very special plant-based nature news roundup with good news all about the Great Barrier Reef to bees flourishing in the South Downs National Park, and other awesome news pieces all about celebrating nature. So here we go. Here's this week's episode with Rowan Cannon, the director of Wild Rumpus CIC. Welcome to the podcast, Rowan. So pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
I'm going to put this out there straight away as soon as we start, that just before we recorded, we both said that we might be disturbed because we both have a dog that may, make an appearance on the podcast in some way. And so we're just going to go with that and see what happens.
Yeah, I've got a sleepy greyhound next to me that I'm hoping will stay sleepy and quiet.
Stay asleep just for a little bit longer. We'll see whose dog lasts the length of the podcast. Yeah. So Rowan, I know we're here to talk about timber, which I'm really excited to learn more about. It looks fabulous. It's definitely right up my street for sure. But I'd love to kind of start with getting to know you a bit better and, how you have come to, link play with nature and why you love nature. So maybe you can give us a bit of a potted history of yourself.
Of course, absolutely. I think that I have always found nature really important in my life and have found kind of solace and comfort in it since I was a really little girl. I grew up in a small village in Scotland and then moved to Manchester when I was about 11 or 12 and felt that like huge wrench and a completely different kind of way of life. So I went from kind of a really rural setting surrounded by nature and plants and trees into quite an urban place. And I think since then I have my whole life been seeking out those green places. And I think both in kind of like the big vast Peak District, Lake District, huge landscapes of the UK, but also just the kind of the pockets of green that we can find comfort in that are much closer to home.
It's interesting what you said, actually, how you just find solace in nature. Randomly, a memory popped into my mind when you said that. When I was young, we lived on like a little row of cottages. They were teeny tiny little houses. And we had this tiny little like patio garden. My mum used to put hanging baskets up. And if I ever felt, I don't know, stressed, I guess, I don't know, or I wanted to escape, I would sit in the shed and listen to the rain hitting the shed, because it was very urban, like there was no green around us whatsoever. Yeah. And I would just listen to the rain. And that memory just popped into my mind when you said that, because it kind of makes you feel comfortable just hearing and being in nature, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of almost the more that we are, the more that we feel that. I really feel that, you know, I mean, we, as Wild Rumpus, I'll tell you more about it in a little bit, but we work from a woodland. So I'm lucky enough to go into the woods every day. And I think the more that I'm there, the more that I crave it. I feel like it's an addiction.
Do you know, I completely agree with that. I think once you feel something special happen when you make that connection, it's like you just don't want to let go, and you want to like amplify it more and learn more and be in it more. Like, is it an addiction? You can be addicted to something that's really good, right? Yeah. I think maybe it's an addiction in its most positive sense. Yeah. Okay. We're going to go with an addiction then. So, how did Wild Rumpus come about? Tell us all about that and the work that you do.
Sure. So we're a non-profit arts organisation. We're based kind of just south of Manchester, just north of Stoke-on-Trent. And we started 13 years ago, initially to produce Just So Festival, which is, we've got 2 weekend camping festivals in the summer alongside lots of other things. And Just So Festival was our kind of first baby. And myself and my previous co-director, Sarah, who founded the organisation with me, neither of us were from the arts. Neither of us had ever organised an event or a festival. Neither of us had a clue what we were doing, but we had this kind of vision of a weekend where families were the main event, and it was kind of at that point we both had quite young children and would go to art galleries or go to museums or go to like more formal art spaces and feel and my kids in particular, my wild boys, would be climbing the walls. I'd be holding them by my side and hissing at them, and when we were in green places everyone felt more relaxed, and it just felt like this is the kind of the most natural place to be. And we also love music festivals, love going to festivals, love that idea that like routine goes out the window. Suddenly it's like, I don't know, there's the adrenaline of like surprises around every corner. And we were like, wouldn't it be amazing if you could like squash all those things together and have like really high quality arts, but also do that in woodlands and green places so that everyone felt relaxed and like they could engage in a really natural fashion, and do it over a weekend so that like people could just come and be completely immersed. And so that was kind of our vision. And so we had our first Just So Festival in 2010, and it was wonderful for the audience and horrific as organisers. We spent most of the weekend in tears, crying behind skips, wondering what we'd like let ourselves in for, and then as we kind of stood at the gate and people were leaving, and people had been immersed in nature all weekend and making art and listening to music and kind of sitting in trees with ice cream, listening to opera, and just like it kind of had fulfilled all those kind of dreams that we'd had about creating these really kind of transformative family memories. And so everyone was leaving. We were still kind of tear-stained at the gates, and everyone was just like, it's been like the most transformative, incredible weekend. We feel more at home here than we have done in so many places. We feel transformed as a family. Like this one incredible lady was like, I'm quite a new mom. I've not really found my place as a mom, and this weekend has made me understand who I am again. And it's just this really like powerful memories that we've created, and we were like, oh no, we're gonna have to do it again. So that was so like I say, that was in 2010, and Just So is still going strong, and is a really beautiful, riotous, ridiculous, wild weekend of play in the forest. But we do all sorts of other things now. So as I say, we work in the forest, and we do lots of like artist resident, who's an artist like development to support like the outdoor art sector. So basically, if you're an artist in the UK and you want to create circus that's outside, or if you're a musician and you're interested in being inspired by trees and forests, then they're the kind of people that's kind of like world we maneuver our way around and try and support. And so we produce another weekend camping festival called Timber, which I'll tell you a bit more about in a minute, but also all sorts of other things. Basically, if it's to do with being connected to nature or it's to do with being playful, then we are like both feet in. So we do lots of work with like the National Trust and like Chester Zoo and Hampton Court Palace, all sorts of different different places that people could go. What we generally do is fall in love with a place and want to tell its stories, and that's often around nature connection. And so we work in lots of places. We're mainly outside. We do sometimes venture into museums and galleries and libraries and kind of try and take nature from outside inside those places. But yeah, we're probably most comfortable in the forest.
I don't blame you. I'm very comfortable in the forest too. What do you think it is about being in nature that brings the playful side out of people? What do you think, how does that happen? Like, why? I mean, you see people out, even just kids running around in the forest feeling kind of free, what kind of brings about that playful feeling?
I think it's a few different things. I think it's definitely a sense of freedom. I think that nature, I think particularly where the conditions are in place, where there aren't barriers to accessing nature. So I think there is a whole conversation which is really interesting and important to have about who has easy access to nature and who doesn't. But I think where people can be in nature and feel an ownership and sense of place there, then there is great freedom in that, because you don't have to be quiet, you don't have to sit down, you don't have to comply with all of these kind of restrictions that come in place. I think especially when you're young, when you're a kid, or when you feel like you don't always want to be quiet or be contained, that actually there's a freedom in being able to express yourself. I think nature is surprising, that I think it's changing all the time. So there's always this sense of kind of adrenaline and change and movement and growth. But I also think it feels natural, and we feel creative in nature because it is, we're part of it. It's not a thing that's happened to us, but that those cycles of nature feel, actually, once you spend a little bit of time there and get in green places and feel comfortable, that actually it feels, it sounds ridiculous to say, it feels natural because we're part of those cycles of growth and then rest and then restorative time. And I think the more that we can listen to that, I think the happier and more creative we are. And then that isn't where play comes from. I think people can't be playful unless they feel safe and kind of connected. And I think that those things come together.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I always think to myself, when we go outside as adults, we put our shoes on, and quite rightly so, we're not going to walk everywhere without our shoes on. But kids go outside, they want to take their shoes off. Mm. It's like that feeling of being liberated. Do you know what I mean? And I think as adults, being out in nature kind of allows you to have feeling a little bit more of your inner child in a way, a bit more playfulness and inquisitiveness. We don't, as adults, we don't always look with the inquisitive hat on, the questions. Do you know what I mean? Whereas kids go outside and they pick up stones and they're like, oh, what's this? What's under here? They want to take their shoes off and they want to run around. And as we grow up, adults sort of lose that. And when you find that connection with nature, I always feel I feel more free and liberated and playful when I'm outside, just naturally. And we are nature, aren't we? At the end of the day, we are it as well.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. And I think there's a couple of things from what you've just said. One is that I think that nature is the best playground, just in its very essence, because I think what kids, both young and also grown-ups who are playful and childlike, can pick up and play with things in so many different ways. And nature has all this stuff. It's got trees to climb, it's got stones to pick up, it's got twigs, it's got soil to dig in, it's got water to splash about in. And I think people want to be creative in their play, and in contrast, I guess, to a more traditional urban playground, which is never going to change. It does its thing, and you can go and you can swing on it, but that swing's never going to be different. Whereas you can go to the same patch of nature week after week, and it'll change, and there'll be different things there, and there'll be different things you can do and use your imagination to create. So I think that's amazing. But I think also as kind of, I guess, as an organisation that works from and in nature, that's kind of deliberate, because we are interested in how being in green places and having the sky above you instead of a ceiling really makes us think differently. I think we find whenever we invite people into our woodland space, whether they are from other arts organisations, whether they're theatre makers or acrobats or musicians, but also if they're teachers or social workers, that actually the conversations that you have can just often meander in a different way, because meetings tend not to be kind of restricted in the same way. We often would go for a walk for a meeting or sit around a campfire, and actually the conversations feel more free and natural, and the conversations and the dreams and the ideas we have are also more playful for kind of similar reasons.
Yeah, I wonder, when you are, for example, at home, on your laptop, or the TV's on, or you've got all this stuff going on in your mind, like, we're all kind of creative people, really, aren't we? We've all got creativity within us, but our minds are so busy just with all this other stuff that, society and life brings about, that we have to do as humans. We don't have to, but we do.
We do.
And then we go outside, into nature, and going back to what we were saying before, like, you have that freedom, and so your brain is clearer, and so that kind of brings out the creativity within you, which sort of links to the arts, because you do a lot of art and play, don't you? And that's a really big part of what you do as well, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say as Wild Rumpus, our the two kind of main legs we stand on are nature connection and permission to play, and we try to work around both those areas through arts and culture, because we think that the combination of those three things, I guess, of nature and art and play, is like a really powerful triangle of things that and when it comes to nature connection, I think we are looking at how art and culture can reflect the world that we live in. It can help people look at their world differently. Sometimes the world, especially with the climate crisis and looking at the kind of enormity of some of the struggles that we're kind of looking ahead towards, can be really scary. And I think that art and culture has such a powerful place in imagining a positive future, and it's kind of hard to do that without some context around it. I think that is, if nothing else, is amazing at like creating and imagining new worlds, and that's what we're all about. So I think that's like that at the heart of how art and nature can work together, is to really hopefully create and imagine a brave new world we can all step into. And then I think play and creativity is like the lifeblood of, I don't know, and all good that comes from the world. I feel like it is, all of the joy and connectedness, I think, comes through creativity and imagination, and creating those kind of memories and things that tie us together. Those powerful moments that we share are often through play. Yeah, that's so true. And also, when it comes to being outside, I always think like you can look at it like a big canvas, like a big water. You say if you're standing in the forest and you just look out at the trees and the sky and the canopy, it's just like a big watercolor, and you feel like you're in it, like you are literally in it, but you're like immersed in this beautiful painting, and nature is just the best. I know it's a cliche to say it, but nature is the best artist, and just about everything that we draw or do creatively as humans comes from nature. That's where it's based from. So it all makes sense. Oh, hi, we've got someone joining in. I know, I knew that my pooch would be the first one to come, and he cries if I don't pay enough attention to him.
Oh, we're giving you some attention now, like to 500,000 people, in fact.
Feel the love.
We're all sending you love. Oh, bless. Okay, so we'll get to timber in a moment, but I just want to pick up on something that you said earlier about, it's not just about being, experiencing nature on a deeper level in a a nature setting such as a big woodland and forest and big open landscape, but it is also the smaller green spaces that might, say, be in urban environments. So having access to that, element of nature is also really important, isn't it? So these kind of, events that you run can help draw people out of urban environments into, a more natural space in order for them to feel that connection as well. And do you have, any kind of like opinions on, urban green spaces and how that, can help people?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I've got strong opinions on access to nature and access to green spaces, and that it should be far more universal than I think it is at the moment in terms of our right to access the land that we live on, and the barriers that there are to stop, that there are barriers in place that stop people accessing the green spaces. And they can be physical or legal, but also kind of social and economic, that stop people being able to get into green places. I think it was really interesting in lockdown how that was, we've all talked about it a lot, about how that restriction of people's lives and being contained kind of much closer to home did force people to go and find those green places. And I think it increased the value that people placed on the green places that were close to where they lived, because that was where they were finding those little moments of solace and those moments of comfort from nature. We produced a really lovely project during lockdown called Sounds of the Forest, where we invited initially just our Timber Festival audience to go into their local green place and just record a minute. And then we created this kind of sound map of those sounds. But actually, I think it just captured a moment and kind of captured a wave of interest, and people were going out and exploring their local area and finding these green places. So we got thousands and thousands of sounds from all over the world. In fact, we ended up with thousands of sounds, and it was really powerful. And it's still a powerful project now, because it wasn't our intention, but actually some of those sounds are now like archives of forests that don't exist anymore. So there's, for example, some forests that were in California that were destroyed by wildfires, where previous to that people would send us in like kind of sound clips of those forests that now are kind of, are an archive of a place that doesn't exist anymore. So really powerful. And I think it just showed that people value those places that are near to them. And sometimes it just takes someone asking you to go and look and listen and absorb for a minute, and you really think, oh wow, yeah, this place is, it might just be tiny, it might just be a pocket park, it might just be, the green bit around the back of Tesco's or whatever, but actually it's special to me.
Yeah. And those sounds bring back memories, and you learn from it, which is so lovely. Just to have a record of what it sounded like in a natural environment that's not there anymore that's pretty deep.
It was powerful, exactly, and certainly wasn't something we anticipated at the start of the project, but that has been the legacy. Is really wonderful for us.
Can you access those sounds?
Yeah, sure. So that you can get to them through the Timber Festival website. There's a menu called Sounds of the Forest, and you can click on there and access the sound map and listen to all of those sounds.
Oh wow, there you go. That's amazing. Oh, do you know, so my dog can hear your dog now. So she's just come out. She sat next to me. Her head and ears are up like I can hear a dog.
Where are they?
No, don't call. Oh, she's coming. I knew she would come. Here we go. Hi, you can say hi. There you go. Anyway, okay, so we got to talk about timber now. We've got to the point of talking about it. It's coming up in July. Tell us all about it, dates, what's going on, what it's all about, why anyone listening should come along to it, and how to book up.
Yeah, of course. Can I tell you a little bit about where it came from? Because I think it's a really
absolutely. Tell us everything you want to tell us.
So, Timber Festival came from a partnership that we built with the National Forest. And the National Forest is this incredible project that I want to tell you about, which is in about 30 years ago, DEFRA put out a call to create a national forest. And it was in the same way that we have like a national portrait gallery or like a national maritime museum. And it was like kind of emblem of forest for the nation, as it were. And lots of existing forests kind of threw their hat into the ring and said, whoever, I'm not sure exactly which ones, but the New Forest and Sherwood Forest and existing well-established forests were okay, great, we'd love to be the nation's forest. And then these three councils from Staffordshire, Leicestershire and Derbyshire said, we would like to be the nation's forest. And they pointed at this patch of 220 square miles of land that kind of went across the corners of their council, of their boundaries. And at that point there was 3% tree cover. There wasn't barely a tree to be seen. It was this patch of the country that was really scarred from open cast mining. So it was old coal mining communities, lots of unemployment, really uninspiring landscape, not much green space at all. And they were like, we'll hand up, we would like to be the national forest. And initially everyone was like, what are you talking about? Laughed them out of town almost. But they had a really clear vision of planting 99 million trees over 25 years, and not only creating a new forest, but creating new communities that were based in and around the forest, and where people could live and work in partnership with the forest. And it's just the most inspirational project. I could just talk on and on about it, because that's kind of where they're getting to. They now have 27% tree cover. Like I say, they've planted 9 million trees, and the place has completely shifted. So there are these communities that have economies that are as much based on forestry and coppicing and tourism that's about bringing people to woodland spaces, and as much as it used to be about coal mining. And I just think it's such an incredible, inspirational project. It's a really beautiful thing. And so they started to talk to us about how they could express their story, and the story of kind of humans living with forests, which obviously around the world happens a huge amount, but not quite so much in the UK. And we were like, we'd love to tell that story. And so that's kind of where the kernel of Timber came from. It's about telling that story of national forest. It's a really beautiful site called Feanedock, which is just outside Swadlincote, which is not a million miles from Leicester, very close to the M6, very accessible. It's really beautiful kind of, there's a little bit of ancient woodland, but mainly kind of more recent woodland that was planted as part of the National Forest project. Well, our very first timber, it overlooked a landfill site that had been recently decommissioned, but if the wind blew in the wrong direction, you could still get a waft. But now that same space, it's now a fully landscaped lake. We're not quite swimming in it yet, but we will be at some point. So our kind of loyal timber visitors who've been since the first year have already seen, just in that short 5-year period, they've seen that landscape change before their very eyes. And it's telling the story of the place that we're in so powerfully. But yeah, so they kind of said to us, do you want to come and tell this story? And we were like, absolutely. We have so many artists and performers and musicians who are interested in nature. And so that's in this essence what timber is. Timber is about our human relationship with nature and how we can express that in all different, wonderful, colourful, dramatic ways. And so it ends up, it's a music festival. So there are 2 stages with incredible music. Lots of the musicians are interested in nature and have projects that are kind of nature based. But then we also have, like I say, circus and comedy and cabaret, loads of amazing art installation projects, which are rooted in the forest, both in the National Forest itself and also in other forests. And then a really broad programme of talks and panels and provocations, all exploring our relationship with nature. And then lots of chance to play in all of its different forms. Well, whatever age you are, we have all sorts of workshops and places to play and be.
It sounds amazing. I'm just sitting here going, I haven't got my diary next to me, but I'm like, I want to go get
please
my diary now.
Please come. Yeah, so it's the 7th, 8th, 9th of July. And this year we've got a super lineup. We've got some really inspirational talks from the likes of Raina Wynn, who's going to talk about her incredible walks that her and her husband have done through the nature in the UK. We've got panels like from anxiety to action. We've got kind of real like young activists like Clover Hogan and Ellen Miles kind of coming and talking about what can we do about this kind of our climate in peril, and how can we take really positive action to change that. And then really great like music like the Go Team. We've got Sisters Wives. We've got it's a really broad program. There's artists who, like Gobbledygook Theatre, who've created like a cloud spotting installation where you can come and be inspired in all sorts of different ways.
Oh, I did have a look at some of the activities before, and there's forest bathing and yoga and meditation and Tai Chi. I did remember seeing laughing yoga, which made me laugh just by saying laughing yoga.
It's the best thing. I feel
brilliant.
As a spectator sport, like I have done laughing yoga and it's really fun to do, but it's also just fun to stand and watch. It's like a field full of people absolutely falling about because it's kind of based on the contagion of laughter, so everyone is falling about. But also in similar vein, kind of watching a whole field full of people experiencing a gong bath is pretty powerful stuff as well, and feeling that kind of resonate through the trees is beautiful.
Kind of like it's almost like the sound waves going through your body, yeah. And like ecotherapy and other therapies, you have the sauna and an ice plunge as well, so if anyone dare take the cold bath.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's as a festival, it really, lots of the feedback we get from our audience is that it is a really restorative experience. It's kind of not the sort of festival where you might kind of stagger out on a Monday morning feeling like you might need another couple of nights sleep. Actually, people come out feeling really like revived and restored, both through experiencing some of that really great well-being offer and like sauna and yoga and mindfulness, but I think also being part of a community of people who are thinking and talking about, like I said, about optimistic, positive futures and how we can take action to move to a more beautiful world. And I think that really is soul food, I guess.
Is it, can you come along for one of the days or all 3 days? Or
you can absolutely. So you can come for all of the above. So you can come on Saturday or Sunday on day tickets. You can come for the whole weekend and camp, and you can either bring your own tent, or we've got like nice bell tent, boutique camping options, and also have like other like less fancy put up tents that you can just come and stay in without carrying all your stuff. And then also you can come for the weekend but not stay. So you could come if you lived locally, for example, you could come on both days but not stay over. We're really encouraging people wherever possible to travel not by car. Obviously, no huge surprise. Sustainability is really central to our work and to our ethos. So we have loads of green initiatives. And if you come in another way, if you come by foot or by bus or by train, then you can get a green wristband, and then you get loads of offers on site, like money off coffees and drinks and merch and stuff.
Is it easy to access then if you don't have a car?
Yeah, it is. So we have we work with the bus company to run a timber bus, which goes from all of the local train stations, and all of the details of that are on the website.
Okay, so that sounds amazing. I'm literally going to go back to the website now. I've chatted with you and go through it again and check my diary. It sounds really cool. I love, the whole beginning of it. It has a story to tell in itself. So, we're talking about art and play, and I know you have I remember seeing something about poetry on there as well, but the festival itself is like a story, why it began. And then if you go year after year, seeing how it develops, that's a story of the forest in itself, isn't it? That you're kind of telling throughout the festival, which is absolutely wonderful.
And I think it really feels like that when, stages like our Erie stage is like absolutely in the kind of oldest bit of woodland. It's this kind of tall stage. And funnily enough, our ex-poet laureate, Simon Armitage, is a friend of the festival and will come and talk, but also has a regular DJ slot. So he come and spin some tunes in the woodland as well.
That's very cool. Poetry, spin some tunes, forest day, dip in a bath, listen to music. How awesome. That sounds really cool. So the National Forest covers parts of Derbyshire, Staffordshire and Leicestershire. And where is this actually based exactly?
So Timber Festival, it's just outside Swadlincote.
Swadlincote, that's what you said.
Swadlincote is the nearest town. Yeah, it's also very near to Burton-on-Trent, not very far from Leicester or from Derby.
They're pretty central for you to get.
Yeah, it's pretty central. And like I say, it's super, like I say, we encourage people to not come by car, but it is super accessible by motorway as well, on the M6.
Okay, where can listeners find you online, your website and your social media as well?
So it's all under Timber Festival. So it's timberfestival.org.uk, and then we're Timber Festival on socials and hashtag Timber Festival and @Timber Festival, and just Google Timber Festival, and there will be.
And it will all come up. And I have to just say, so I have literally just clicked on your Instagram as we're sitting here looking. It looks so cool. It just looks so good. The power of play panel discussions, fall under nature's spell, which I absolutely love. That's awesome. There's just so much to do. It looks epic. So if, any listeners out there, just for a day or for a weekend, want some time outside in nature and just feel that connection and just come away feeling, that lovely transformative feeling that you do after spending time with like-minded people, learning and playing and absorbing, just taking time out of, everyday crazy human being life, then this definitely looks like the festival to be going to. So thank you so much, Rowan, for coming onto the podcast and telling us all about it.
Thank you, Beverly. That's been such a beautiful conversation. I feel restored.
Yay! There we go. So we hope all the listeners feel restored, but they want a little bit more restoration and they're going to come to the festival. And in the meantime, I can hear some doggy whining in the background, and my dog's got her ears up again as well. So we're probably at about the limit of keeping our dogs under control. So, thank you so much. It's been really enjoyable chatting with you. And, I wish you all the best for Wild Rumpus, in total and everything that you do, but also for the festival. And I really hope that this year, it's been a few years now that you've been doing it, that you don't cry too much behind this.
I like to just get one little cry in, just to keep just to keep my foot in the door. But yeah,
okay.
It's been a look. Thank you so much for having me.
Total pleasure. You have to ground yourself with a little tear every now and again, okay? But hopefully at the end of it, it's all good tears. I think what you're doing is really amazing. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Welcome to the plant-based podcast Nature News.
Your nature-based news roundup for the week. Wildlife habitats the size of 163 football pitches have been created in the South Downs National Park to help bees flourish. The 66 hectares of habitat have been grown as part of the Bee Lines initiative to provide a road system for pollinating insects to move from one area to the next through the protected area.
The government has just launched England's first ever National Marine and Coastal Wildlife Code. This offers friendly advice and guidance to help people visit the coast responsibly. Home to around 95% of Europe's grey seal population and around 25% of Europe's breeding seabirds, the British coastline supports many iconic species and habitats. It's also a special place to visit, and ongoing work to establish the King Charles III England Coast Path, which when complete will be the longest waymarked coastal path in the world, at over 2,700 miles, is helping more people than ever to access these environments.
Darwin's flycatchers are tiny birds on the edge of extinction, but conservation experts now believe the tiny bird could be making a comeback. Known for their striking colours, the charismatic birds can be found only in the Galapagos Islands, but the International Union for Conservation of Nature has labelled them vulnerable. However, on the island of Santa Cruz, there's been 12 new chicks born this year, which is really exciting news.
Grassy areas maintained by Leicester City Council will be less maintained as part of a strategy to reduce pollution and provide more space for nature. The authority has introduced a new grass cutting regime where some sites will be left to grow between March and October, whilst others will be cut just once or twice a year. Sports pitches and formal lawns will be mown as frequently as required. About 14% of the city's total surface area is council-managed grassland, including parks and roadside verges. The Local Democracy Reporting Service said the council's new grassland strategy aimed to help reduce carbon dioxide levels and provide more space for nature to thrive.
Scientists who are fighting to save the Great Barrier Reef have discovered a new secret weapon. It's a tiny red crab. The Great Barrier Reef is one of the natural wonders of the world, but many of its reef-building corals have been devoured by plagues of toxic crown of thorns starfish. However, this little tiny red crab could help to stop that. The red decorator crab, as it's known, has a voracious appetite for the juvenile starfish, which means that perhaps they could actually save the Great Barrier Reef. Thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Plant-Based Podcast. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Stoneleigh Wines. Their premium wines in New Zealand are made from 100% sustainably sourced grapes and is vegan certified also. Our favourite Stoneleigh Sauvignon Blanc displays fresh and vibrant aromas of passion fruit and citrus with crisp notes. We have our exclusive discount code for 20% off Stoneleigh Sauvignon Blanc exclusively on Amazon using the code STONELEIGH20.
The music for the Plant-Based Podcast is part of the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editor is Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.